The story of Abraham's journey to Egypt is one of faith, fear, mistakes, and the mercy of God. It shows us how even the strongest believers can sometimes fall short when fear replaces trust, and how God still protects those he has chosen. There was a great famine in the land of Canaan. The ground was dry, crops had withered, and food became scarce. People were hungry, animals were dying, and survival became a daily struggle. Abraham, who was still called Abram at that time, looked around and saw that staying in Canaan meant starvation. He had left his home country in obedience to God's call, but now the land that God had promised him could no longer provide food. So, Abram made a practical decision. He decided to go down to Egypt, a land known for its fertile soil and the great river Nile, where food was still available. Egypt was the closest refuge in times of famine. Many travelers went there for survival, and Abram thought, perhaps this is the best thing to do for now. But sometimes, what seems best to us may not be what's best in God's eyes. Abram didn't ask God what to do. He acted out of fear rather than faith. This single decision set the stage for one of the most testing moments in his life. As Abram and his wife Sarai, later called Sarah, approached Egypt, something began to trouble Abram deeply. He looked at Sarai, beautiful, elegant, and radiant even in her old age. Her beauty was not ordinary. It was striking and noticeable. Abram thought about what might happen once they entered Egypt. He knew the Egyptians were known for taking beautiful women into the Pharaoh's palace. And since he was her husband, he feared that they would kill him just to have her. His heart became heavy with fear. He turned to Sarai and said, I know that you are a woman of great beauty. When the Egyptians see you, they will say, this is his wife, and they will kill me, but let you live. Please, say that you are my sister so that it will be well with me because of you, and my life will be spared for your sake. This was not a complete lie. Sarai was indeed Abram's half-sister, Genesis 20 verse 12. But it was still a half-truth, and half-truths can cause full problems. Abram believed this plan would protect him, but in doing so, he put his wife's safety and purity at risk. His fear made him rely on human wisdom instead of divine protection. When Abram and Sarai entered Egypt, just as he feared, her beauty drew attention. The Egyptians could not help but notice her. Word about her loveliness spread quickly, even reaching the palace. Soon, Pharaoh's princes came and told Pharaoh about this beautiful woman who had just arrived in Egypt. Pharaoh, being a powerful king, sent for her. He wanted her brought to his palace. Sarai was taken into Pharaoh's house, and Pharaoh treated Abram well for her sake. Pharaoh gave Abram sheep, oxen, donkeys, camels, and servants, both male and female. To the world, Abram had gained wealth and favor. But deep inside, he had lost peace. Imagine how Abram must have felt. He watched his wife being taken away into another man's house, a situation caused by his own fear and lack of faith. He was alive, yes, but his heart was troubled. No wealth could replace the guilt and anxiety that must have filled his mind. But God saw everything. God knew that Pharaoh had taken Sarai innocently, not knowing she was Abram's wife. God also saw Sarai's heart, faithful, frightened, and confused, and he would not allow her to be defiled. So the Lord intervened. He sent plagues upon Pharaoh and his household, serious and mysterious afflictions that could not be explained. The palace that had once been filled with music and laughter was now full of suffering and fear. Pharaoh, alarmed and desperate, sought answers. And somehow, the truth was revealed. Sarai was not just Abram's sister. She was his wife. Pharaoh was furious. He immediately summoned Abram and said, What have you done to me? Why didn't you tell me she was your wife? Why did you say, she is my sister? I might have taken her as my wife. Now, here is your wife. Take her and go. Pharaoh then commanded his men to send Abram, Sarai, and all that belonged to them out of Egypt. And just like that, Abram left Egypt, richer than when he came, but wiser and more humble in spirit. This story is not just about Abram's mistake. It's about God's faithfulness even when we fail. Let's look at what we can learn from it. 1. Faith should replace fear. Abram allowed fear to control him instead of trusting the God who had promised to protect him. Fear will always tempt us to take matters into our own hands. But faith reminds us that God is greater than any danger we face. 2. Half-truths are still deception. Abram told a half-truth to protect himself, but it led to more trouble. Deception, no matter how small, can bring unexpected pain. God desires honesty, especially from those who represent him. 3. God protects his own, even in our weakness. Even though Abram failed in faith, God still stepped in to protect Sarai and preserve his promise. This shows God's mercy and faithfulness. He doesn't abandon us when we stumble. He helps us find our way back. 4. Worldly gain cannot replace spiritual peace. Abram received riches from Pharaoh, but at the cost of peace and guilt. It's a reminder that no blessing gained through fear or deceit can bring true satisfaction. Only obedience to God brings lasting peace. 5. God's plans are greater than our mistakes. This event didn't cancel God's promise to Abram. Instead, it became a lesson that shaped his faith. Later in life, Abram would learn to trust God more deeply, even when faced with far greater tests. Many of us are like Abram. We start with strong faith, but when circumstances grow tough, when famine comes into our lives, we panic. We run to Egypt, we create plans, we tell half-truths, and we try to survive using human wisdom. But the story of Abram reminds us that God's promises do not depend on perfect obedience. He is patient with us. He teaches us through our mistakes. And even when our choices lead us into Egypt, into places of fear, compromise, or confusion, God's mercy can still find us there. When we trust God fully, He leads us out of Egypt, not just richer in possessions, but richer in faith. Abram's journey to Egypt teaches us that faith and fear cannot live in the same heart. One must conquer the other. Fear leads us to deception, but faith leads us to peace. Fear makes us take control, but faith makes us surrender control to God. In the end, God delivered Abram and Sarai not because they were perfect, but because He is faithful. And that same faithful God still delivers His children today, even when our faith wavers. So whenever life's famine pushes you toward fear, remember this. Don't go down to Egypt without asking God first. If this story of Abraham and Sarah encouraged you or taught you something new, don't keep it to yourself. Like this video to show your support, share it with friends and family so they can learn from it too, and subscribe to the channel for more powerful Bible stories and lessons that will inspire your faith every day. Stay connected, stay blessed, and let God's Word guide your journey.